The crime dog and the captain inducted in the Hall of Fame. Fred McGriff, what an unbelievable career. 489 career home runs. Toronto, cup of coffee, San Diego, legendary career, Atlanta. I had forgotten that he linked up with the Dodgers right at the end. What a tremendous gentleman. What a great, great player. And the captain, Scott Rolen. Holy cow, you talk about a grinder. I mean, this is a self-made guy. Star third baseman, Cardinals, Phillies, finished up with the Reds, leader. Very impressive person. And their speeches were just so cool at Cooperstown on Sunday afternoon. The crime dog, he never spoke. He was so refined and so introverted. He said more in a 15 to 20-minute speech than I heard from him in his multiple years with the Padres. I mean, he was just fascinating to talk about what a struggle it was and the coaches that influenced him and how he went 2 for 27 his first year deep in the minor leagues in the Smoky Mountains, and he became a Hall of Famer. And Rolen, I mean, it's fascinating to talk about what Rolen learned to make himself a good player. And it all kind of spun back to when he was a high school athlete struggling. And he was a pretty good basketball player, but he couldn't keep up. And he had the conversation with his dad, and his dad says, "What can't you do?" He says, "Well, I can't jump and I can't shoot consistently, and I'm a step slow to the basket." And well, what can you do? He said, "Well, I can defend and I can bang and I know how to post up and rebound and all that." He said, "Go do what you can do." End of the conversation. And he took that philosophy with him to baseball as he marched through the minor leagues, got to the major leagues.
Nice.
And you talk about a grinder just every day. That's who he was. Not a personality, didn't sell himself. He was probably as stoic and quiet as the crime dog was at home plate. And you could identify McGriff because there's the ball and it's going out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter whose jersey he was wearing, it left the yard. You identified Rolen because he was diving for ground balls. He was sliding into first base head first. He was stroking it. He was hitting home runs, wound up with 318 home runs and a 281 career batting average. But to hear these guys tell the story of Cooperstown, and it's so cool. Have you ever been to Cooperstown Hall of Fame?
Yeah, we went about 12 years ago. And what a neat little town that is. And the museum is just unbelievable.
Yeah, when you walk through the Hall of Plaques,
mm-hmm.
and I went there a couple of Octobers ago. And I'd been there prior when I used to work in upstate New York. I used to broadcast the Hall of Fame game when the major league teams would go in there and play on that Monday.
Oh, wow.
It was really cool. I walked in, and it's just total silence in the walkway with the Hall of Plaques. And there on the top row on the right, and the light is shining off it, is the gold plaque of Mr. Padre Tony Gwynn.
Beautiful.
So cool. So if you're a baseball fan, move that to the top of your bucket list. You need to go to Cooperstown and walk through the Hall of Fame because it's utterly spectacular, not just where the plaques are, but all the displays and all the historical stuff and the pictures and the movies. Really fun. Here's a keynote. I know it's summer vacation. You go there in the summer. There's 1 trillion people in Cooperstown. You go there in January when it is snowing and it is cold and there's nobody in the hall, and you can walk in there and get lost for 11 hours during the winter. To me, that's the best time to go. But how about the crime dog? How about the captain?
Yeah, well, I mean, just quickly on Cooperstown, you're right. It's a museum, and you can get lost there. But I had, my wife and my 2 young kids with me, and they didn't have as much patience, and so I sent them back to the hotel, and I stayed for like an extra 3 hours. But these 2 guys, I mean, I question, a lot of other people question whether Scott Rolen was legit, but you look at his numbers and, he is legit. But you got to love McGriff. I mean, when he was here in San Diego, he was just so productive. And he's one of those players that you could identify him instantly by his silhouette, whether he's at bat in the left-hander's batter's box or just the way he played first base and the way he moved. He was so instantly identifiable, and it had this grace and beauty about how he moved around. Well, that was a great era in Padre history. That trade with Toronto, when they traded Alomar, you kind of look in the rearview mirror. Maybe we gave up too much, but it was nice to have McGriff here for a few years.
Yeah, we got him. Then the ownership said, cut payroll. trade him, which was too bad.
Mhm.
Great for Atlanta, but what a gentleman.
Hmm.
And I dealt with him. I liked him. Very quiet, very introspective. Whereas the other guy was just a grinder. You knew what he was all about. Okay, before